The British Medical Association has criticised a family doctor in Lancashire who's refused to continue treating a 2-year-old girl with a heart condition. He's told the girl's parents it would be too expensive to care for her under the new health service contracts being brought in by the government.
William Yip is too young to know anything about the dispute between the government and doctors over new contracts. But because his worried parents called out a doctor 3 times when he first came home from hospital, he's caught in the middle of it. Faye Bramall suffers from a heart complaint. She's had 12 home visits. She shares the same GP who says under his new contract he doesn't want to treat either child again. In a letter to their parents, Dr. Michael Durkin told them to find another GP and said, "We can no longer afford to keep on our lists patients who use above average the on-call doctor service at nights or weekends."
I was both shocked and angry when I first received the letter. I couldn't believe the contents of the letter seemed very abrupt when I first read the letter.
We went to see Dr. Durkin, and Dr. Durkin said that because we were using the on-call too much, that we have to go. We have to find another doctor, and he's given us 10 days to find another one.
At his surgery, Dr. Durkin declined to be interviewed, but told ITN the government was forcing doctors to make financial judgments instead of purely clinical ones.
I don't think there's any way in which you can possibly justify doing this on the basis of lack of financial income. We don't become doctors in order to get rich. You primarily become a doctor to serve the other people in your community. And if you suddenly decide that patients aren't worth serving, it doesn't matter how much you're going to get paid for them.
While the medical profession continues to do battle with the government over health service reforms, William and Faye remain blissfully unaware of the fuss around them, and they both now have new GPs. Jim Buchanan, News at 10, Lancashire.
The baby boy who underwent heart surgery while still in his mother's womb is in a critical condition tonight in a hospital in London. Michel Vermilio was born prematurely 3 weeks ago. He had the operation to unblock a heart valve when his mother was nearly 8 months pregnant. The surgeon says at least the baby boy has a chance of life.
Doctors at Guy's Hospital say the 2 operations they performed were the first of their kind in the world and baby Michaela's only chance of survival.
We know that this technique can be done in children, but sometimes that's too late then to preserve the function of the heart. We hope that by operating before birth we could buy a little time and allow for some recovery time before birth.
The pioneering procedure was made possible by this catheter, a tiny tube less than a 1/20th of an inch across with a small balloon at the end. With the mother conscious under local anaesthetic, the tube was inserted through her abdomen into the womb. The surgeons then had to gently guide the tube into the baby's heart, which at 8 months is only the size of a grape. A needle was pushed out to reach the block valve, and the balloon inflated to force open the obstruction. The first operation failed, a second was needed. A videotape shows the ultrasound scan of the baby's heart beating steadily during the operation. It didn't even move away from the needle.
I hope that this heralds a new era for the treatment of children in the womb for more than one kind of condition, the ones who would die if they weren't treated.
Doctors here say the operation they've carried out opens up new, uncharted territory. They performed the procedure once before, but the infant died in the womb. Now they've proved it can be done. The acid test is to see if they can do it again. The latest bulletins from the hospital say Michaela is very critical. Lawrence McGinty, News at 10 at Guy's Hospital.
The BP oil company says it's going to open up a new oil field off the south coast of England. BP says there's £1,000 million worth of oil under the seabed near Poole Harbour, but it's a holiday centre.
BP wants to pump oil from the seabed at one of Britain's most popular holiday spots, Poole Harbour. Brownsea Island in the harbour is National Trust property. Here there's a treasured bird sanctuary. It's also one of the few places where red squirrels have survived in their natural habitat. It'll be the first oil field development off the coast of southern England. Oil and gas are already taken from under the seabed in the North Sea and the Irish Sea in Morecambe Bay. Now BP wants to exploit the oil reserves it's found off the Dorset coast in and around Poole Harbour. The company already has an onshore field there at Witch Farm. The options open to BP are either to build a large rig just off the harbour or to create a man-made island to house its drilling operation within sight of holiday beaches. BP knows that its plans for this area will not be popular.
The oil is where you find it. We can do absolutely nothing about that. It happens to be in an area of extreme beauty and sensitivity, and that's a problem.
Environmentalists say the coastal land must be preserved.
It's absolutely essential because so much heathland has been lost in the south of England over the last 10 years, 50 years, that these existing sites must be protected.
Other companies which have been test drilling in the area will watch BP's progress with interest.
Of course, when other oil companies see BP making money out of the Dorset coast, they're more likely to want to drill there, and if they're successful, then there may be more oil fields developed down south.
Does that mean we're one step nearer developing a new Channel oil field?
I think we could say we're one step nearer, but we're still several steps away from it.
With North Sea oil running out, BP and others will invest heavily in new fields, even if they are just off the beaches.
The Director of Public Prosecutions has told MPs that police officers of all ranks are not cooperating with the Crown Prosecution Service. Mr Alan Green told a parliamentary inquiry into the CPS that the police were still bitter that the service set up 4 years ago had usurped their role in bringing prosecutions to court.
A heating engineer from Witney in Oxfordshire has won £1.5 million on Littlewoods pools. Jerry Hall presented Alan Hepton with his cheque. He was joined by his girlfriend at the presentation and said it would be back to work as usual after a short celebration.
Tonight, soccer, the FA Cup fourth round replays. Liverpool 3, Norwich 1, Newcastle 4, Reading 1, QPR 2, Arsenal 0. Littlewoods Cup fifth round replays. Oldham against Southampton and West Ham against Derby are on midweek sports special afternoons at 10. In Tennent's Scottish Cup third round replay, Hamilton 0, Dunfermline 1. The B&Q Scottish League Division 2, Arbroath 3, East Fife 0.
And tonight's main headlines again. The Prime Minister's admitted that she inadvertently misled MPs in statements about the former Army intelligence officer Colin Wallace. The Commons has heard that among the politicians who may have been targeted by a dirty tricks campaign in the 1970s was the former Prime Minister Edward Heath. The second Welsh weightlifter caught using anabolic steroids took the same drug as the Olympic sprinter Ben Johnson. And President Gorbachev says he's not quitting as Communist Party leader.
Finally, McDonald's, the fast food firm, moved into Moscow today, filling a long-felt want. So Big Macs, French fries and apple pies have broken the barrier, and they aren't even thought imperialist anymore.
Eating out in Moscow can be no picnic. Menus reflect widespread shortages. Service very rarely comes with a smile. But the 600 staff at the new McDonald's were smiling hard today. They've been trained to, and they know the competition's fierce. 25,000 people applied to work here. Outside, their customers had been queuing for up to 2.5 hours, although not everyone knew why. This woman thought it was for ice cream. The hamburgers here sell for rubles, worthless outside the Soviet Union. But McDonald's have an eye on what they believe could be a bright new future for the Soviet economy.
Of course, it's a risk for companies to come in, but I think the risk can be as great by not coming in now as it is by coming in now, and I think companies have to weigh that very carefully.
But there'll soon be a second McDonald's for foreign currency only, and the company believes its processing plant nearby has export potential. The average Soviet has to work nearly 3 hours to earn enough for a Big Mac, compared to just 20 minutes for the average British worker. Nevertheless, Muscovites clearly approved of their hamburgers today. But Soviet customers can be as surly as Soviet staff, and some cynics were wondering how long the smiles will last. Tim Ewart, ITN, Moscow.
And that's it tonight. Good night.
This crash nearly killed Mike Smith and Sarah Green. They needed wheelchairs.